Hello and welcome to Digesting the Soul. Today I'm going to be discussing etheric cords of attachments, and I will provide a list of symptoms that might indicate whether or not you require a cord cutting ceremony, and then at the end I will provide a very simple cord cutting exercise. So the idea that invisible cords of energy are extending outward from our bodies and insert into the energetic fields of other people is really quite a complex concept. It's easy to understand the umbilical cord between a mother and a fetus because that's really a solid, tangible reality. And really that is our very first cord of attachment. And we've even come up with phrases like ties that bind, or when we say somebody needs to cut the apron strings, really what we're referencing are the energetic bonds that develop between people over time. So the theory is that once a relationship of any kind begins, an etheric cord immediately forms. And so whether the relationship is your dry cleaner that you see once a week, you're a coworker, or your lover, a cord manifests to signify the connection between the two of you. And an etheric cord is acting as a conduit for energy to be exchanged between two people. And this energy is in a constant loop. If you imagine the infinity symbol, the figure 8, and it is constantly recording and replaying all of the emotions and experiences within that relationship. So as your relationship grows, your cord is expanding and strengthening and deepening your attachment. So when you have a healthy, loving relationship, the energy that is exchanged is very positive and uplifting. And if you think when you're first falling in love with somebody, that euphoric feeling is really that surge of very positive, loving energy between the cords between two people. On the flip side, if you've been in a relationship that is constantly experiencing many difficulties, over time the energy exchange can be a little bit more negative in nature and will begin to actually kind of draw and sap your own energy. And so it's really important to understand that your own energy, your vitality, and even your underlying health can be diminished by having dysfunctional cords of attachment remain. And really the purpose of a cord cutting ceremony is to just clear and cleanse what I like to term emotional debris that is built up over time. And cord cutting is simply a process that releases and returns energy back to each individual, and hopefully will ensure that there is no future energy loss. So to determine if you may have an unhealthy cord of attachment, you can ask the following questions. Do you often have repetitive or obsessive thoughts about an individual? Sometimes so bad that you want to shut it off and you kind of can't. You're just kind of stewing and it kind of circles in your mind. Do you still harbor negative thoughts or very strong emotional reactions when you think of a person or when their name is brought up? Do you still experience distressing dreams about this person? And many times the relationship is over, you're not seeing them, it may have been years, but you're still having these dreams. And lastly, anytime that you've experienced a particularly toxic, hurtful, or abusive relationship, and if you would ask yourself, gee, well, I find it difficult to even consider forgiving this person, that can definitely indicate that there's probably a very negative cord of attachment. So it's important to know that cord cutting does not permanently end a relationship. It is not a magical spell to remove somebody from your life. And cord cutting is really an action of intention for healing, and it's always related to past events, past emotional energies, and these are energies that are no longer serving you or the other person. And sometimes you're the person who has moved on, and you may still be thinking about a person, and it may be on their end that they're harboring bad feelings, or they still have a lot of attachments to you. So when you're consciously doing a cord cutting ceremony, it can also be beneficial for the other person on the other end so that they can move on. And it's also important to know that cord cutting is really beneficial, not just with people who are no longer in your life or you had a bad relationship with, but for people like our family members who will remain in our throughout the course of our lives. And through a lifetime, we have very many highly charged emotional exchanges between our parents and our siblings. And cord cutting is simply just clearing and cleansing these energies, refreshing it. It can really strengthen the bonds of love that we do have between us, and it can help move our relationship into the future. And instead of replaying, old past wounds and experiences that can't be changed anyways. So cords come in many sizes and widths. I always like to think if you have a person who's just an acquaintance that you don't see often, that cord is probably thin like dental floss. But when you're talking about a parent or a sibling or a spouse, I always imagine these cords as very thick, sort of like the pulley cords you'd see on the old-fashioned ships. And cords can attach anywhere in your energetic field, but I find that if you're familiar with the 7 major chakras, that usually cords will be found there. So if you understand what each chakra means, whatever that relationship is, will probably most identify with one of those 7 chakras. So for instance, if you had a love relationship and you broke up, most likely that cord is still in your heart chakra. So from this point on, I think I'll just move on and show you a very simple cord cutting ceremony. So this is my altar, and I'm just going to go over step by step sort of the basics of a cord cutting ceremony. There are many different methods and techniques out there that people use, and basically what I did was I researched them all, and then I kind of took the pieces that worked best for me and saw if they were effective. So this is a ceremony that I've conducted several times with great results. So basically, before I begin, I always light a candle and or incense, and this really is just as an offering to call in either your spirit guides, your guardian angels, or any other beings that you work with. I like to collect these prayer cards, and I always call in Archangel Raphael and Archangel Michael. And it's really great if you have any grounding experience, if you understand what that means, to try to get grounded and take in a few very deep breaths, and this will really just center yourself, kind of get you into the right mindset. Because you've heard me say in other videos, intention really is everything to a successful outcome of whatever you're focusing on. And so once you're centered, what you want to do is hold the image of the person that you want to do the cord cutting ritual for, and hold it as vividly as you can in your mind's eye. If you're not so good at holding imagery, you can actually prop up a photo where you're going to be performing the ceremony as well, and just really look at it. And try to get really specific about the emotions and the thoughts that you really want to release and let go from this relationship. And next, just kind of imagine, based on what you know about your relationship, where this cord of attachment might be. And as I mentioned, it usually is located to a specific chakra. So really just close your eyes and kind of go with wherever you're just in your mind's eye, seeing it on your body. And it's very helpful if you try to actually visualize the size of it, the color of it, maybe the material of it, and just make it as real as possible. Then next, recite out loud your intention for healing and closure with this person. So actually recite out loud the emotions that you no longer want to feel or replay and think about in your mind. And then what I really believe in symbolism, which is why I'm really into altars here, and choose a symbol, either in your mind's eye or really physically have it here on your altar. I have a favorite pair of scissors here. You could have a knife, a sword, a dagger. What I always use is a selenite wand. These are crystals that are used to energetically clear auras. They also cleanse other aura crystals. They never need to be cleansed themselves. So I always just imagine a very sharp point on this. And this is what I use. But even if you don't have to go out and purchase any of these things, just use your mind's eye. And as you're visualizing these emotions that are attached to this cord, wherever you're imagining this cord located on your body, do the motions of cutting the cord. So I usually will just put the crystal near my body where I think the cord is, and I just imagine it severing it. And you could also just imagine like a sawing motion with your tool in your mind's eye. You could imagine the cords burning up in flames. Like you can imagine it simply just disintegrating the cords between you and this person. You could imagine the cord, recoiling back the way like vacuum cords do. You could see the cord deflating like a balloon and going up into the air. Be as creative as possible, whatever's most meaningful to you. Maybe the symbolism will come to you because of something in your relationship that you shared. And then state aloud, and I always say, with strong intention, your command and demand voice, state aloud after you've imagined this cord cutting between the two of you, all energies no longer for our highest and greatest good have been cleansed and cleared. May only love and light remain between us, so be it. Simply thank any spiritual beings you may have called in, extinguish your candles and your incense, and that's it. Pretty straightforward. Now, how do you determine if your cutting cords of attachment ceremony actually was effective and successful? Well, you should notice that really within a matter of a couple days or a week, it'll suddenly dawn on you that you haven't been thinking of this person. And it usually be shocking and surprising to you, especially if you're one of the people who is maybe having more obsessive compulsive thoughts about somebody. And when you do think of them, it's a lot less highly charged emotionally. And it should be easier over time to even remember maybe the good times that you shared. And sometimes, and I didn't learn this cord cutting ceremony till much later in life, so I don't have really any experience cutting cords with somebody that I had a bad breakup with. But a lot of times what will happen is if it's a new relationship, like a love, relationship that's broken up, you may hear from the person because it's still fresh, and it's almost like when your intention was so highly focused on them, they sort of sensed it and they may reach out to you. And how often should you cut cords of attachments? There are also a lot of philosophies on this. Some people say one cord cutting ceremony is enough for any one person. My experience has been when I have cut a cord of attachment from someone in my distant past, say somebody from childhood or a job I had a decade ago, I never need to cut those cords again. And that's mostly because you're not engaging with that person, you're not seeing them and creating new interactions and new memories and experiences. So when you've cut that cord, you're cutting, that debris from your past between that person. But in my experience, when it's come to people who are still in my life that I've done a cord cutting ceremony with, more than once may be required. And this really is just because they do remain in your life, and you are having many more interactions with them. And if it's a difficult relationship, more conflicts and maybe heated exchanges will go on between the two of you. I've never had, so far it's been a year apart where I've done a second one with somebody, and I did have to wonder if maybe it was this person having many more thoughts about me that I was just picking up on, and that surge of energy or negative intentions or thoughts or emotions or whatever it may be might have been building on their end and back and attached to me. So I did do the second cord cutting ceremony with them, and again with great results. And I found that I did stop thinking about them, and I'm definitely less emotionally charged and angered when their name comes up or I hear the latest thing that has gone on in their lives. So I hope this was really helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments field. I will get back to you. And as always, I'm wishing everyone great health and all the best. See you in my next video. Bye-bye.